everybody, welcome back. So this is my reading wrap-up for the month of March. So these are all the books that I finished in March. So I read 29 books this month, and I don't think I'm going to go over all of them because I think that would take forever. And some of them I just don't think are that important to put up here. But just for an overview, I read 9 physical books this month. I read 11 ebooks this month on my Kindle, and I listened to 9 audiobooks. Of all the ones that I read, 8 of them were fantasy books, 2 of them were mysteries, 1 was kind of an adventure story, I guess. 2 of them were art books, 8 of them were science fiction, 3 of them were nonfiction, 2 of them were manga, there was 1 that was a contemporary fiction, 1 was a cookbook, and 1 was a classic. So those are kind of the breakdown of what I read, and I'll just kind of go over some of them, some of my favorites, some of my least favorites. So overall, I didn't really hate anything this month. My lowest rated book that I read had to be Wicked by Gregory Maguire. This is a retelling of The Wizard of Oz from the perspective of the Wicked Witch of the West. And while most of it I really enjoyed, other than I did get stuck in the prose just a little bit, but there were just parts of it that I didn't like. And so this was my lowest rated one. I gave it 5.5 stars out of 10. So it was better than average. It just, there were parts of it that took away from the story and I just didn't care about. The next lowest rated book was The Appelton Case by Diana Xarissa. This was a cozy mystery. It didn't even have a murder in it. So I don't know, but which doesn't like completely turn it off for me. But the only reason I read it is the author's last name has an X in it. And I have a reading challenge where the alphabet author reading challenge where you try to find books by different authors so that their names are all the letters of the alphabet, and this is the only one I could find where there was an X. Next one I want to mention is The Burning Maze by Rick Riordan. This is the 3rd book in the Trials of Apollo, and this one I gave 6 stars, and again, it was pretty good. I do enjoy these ones. Rick Riordan is kind of just fun to read. And it's probably the last one that I'll read in this series for a little bit. Just because these were available on Amazon Prime Reading, so I got to read them for free. So the next book I want to mention is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. This is the first book in the Strange the Dreamer. I think it's a duology. And I really enjoyed this one at first. I probably would have scored it higher, but then close to the end, when all the action's supposed to be happening, this really intense romance happened, and I just felt like it took away from the story, and it kind of, I won't say it completely ruined it for me, but I'm not even sure I want to continue it because of that. And I gave this one a 6.5 stars. Like I said, it would have been higher if it wasn't for the romance that just took too much away from the story. Next one was Unspeakable Things by Jess Lourey. This is a story about, this is a mystery. There's a bunch of kids in this town going missing, and I guess it was partially based on a real town from the author's hometown. And there's a lot of weird things going on. The main character is part of this family that has things going on, and the family is always concerned about if the kids draw too much attention to themselves and someone comes and finds out what they're doing. I enjoyed it, and it was certainly more than just your regular kind of mystery, and I guess the ending was actually pretty good as well. The next one I listened to was Sephiel's Hand by Melissa McPhail. This is a fantasy series. I gave this one 8 stars. And I enjoyed it. I just felt it was really repetitive. Like there was one main theme in the book, and it kept happening like over and over and over and over and over again. And you gotta admit, way to go for your perseverance and trying to push through. And no matter how many times you fail, continuing to try this one thing. But other than that, it was actually really good. I believe it's an independently published fantasy. I have several of the other books in the series, and I plan to continue it. The next series is one that I finished with my kids, and that was The Mysteries of Cove. And I have to say, I thought this was kind of a fantasy, but I think more it's a sci-fi. But it was a lot of fun, and this is a world where creativity is forbidden and you can't invent things, and it's about a boy that invents things and creates things and finds out that there's a bigger world outside of the city of Cove, which exists inside of a mountain. I gave those ones both 8 stars out of 10. Next one was One Punch Man 6 and 7, and these are just continuations of the manga of One Punch Man, superhero who's so powerful he can kill anything with one punch. I gave both of those ones 8 stars. Okay, next one is Parable of the Talents. This is the second book in the Earthseed duology by Octavia Butler. This is a science fiction. It addresses a lot of inequality and injustice. She does a really good job of looking like how the future would look if not only like we're progressing through the future, but we're digressing in sometimes like the way that we treat people. The next one was Death House Gates by Steven Erikson. This is the second book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen. I enjoyed this one, I think, more than the first one. I think it was a little bit more traditional. And he may say that he doesn't write grimdark, but there are a lot of kind of dark things that happen in this book. And I'm really enjoying it. I think some of the characters gets a bad rap for things that they do, but I don't know. I didn't think that they were as bad as people have said they are. Next one is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is a first contact with aliens, and the aliens are spiders. The Earth is uninhabitable. People are trying to find a place to live. The one planet they find is inhabited by spiders, and it's, you know, who has a right to be there, who has the right to live, and that kind of stuff. So it was really good. I enjoyed the ending as well. I admit I was rooting for the spiders. I gave Children of Time 8.5 stars. Next book I want to talk about is All These Worlds. This is the third book in the Bobverse. This is by Dennis Taylor. I gave it 8.5 stars. Really liking these. They're kind of fun. It's about a guy who is now an artificial intelligence, and he has a ship that he's on, and he keeps making copies of himself, and he's all of the Bobs are exploring the universe. Next one I finished was Into the Wild by John Krakauer. This is a true story about a man. This is the story about Chris McCandless, who one day just decided to, well, I can't say like one day he just decided to give everything away. Donated all of his bank account to charity. He burned all his money, his ID and everything, and decided to go live in the wilds of Alaska. And he ended up dying. They think that he starved to death, but his body was pretty decomposed, so they don't know if it was something else, but it didn't show, his body didn't show signs that he'd been attacked or had a broken leg or anything like that. He just seemed to be like ill prepared for where he was going. It was really sad. I gave it 8.5 stars. Next was Shadowmarch by Tad Williams. This is the first book in the Shadowmarch series. There's 4 books in the series. This follows a set of twins. They are left in charge of their kingdom. Their father is being held for ransom. Their elder brother dies, and they are being kind of attacked by the Car, who are these, I guess they're the Fae. Fae were driven out. The Fae have now come back to reclaim their lands. I gave that one 8.5 stars. Next was Wonder by J.L. Palacio. This is a contemporary fiction, middle grade, and this is about a boy who is disfigured. He's going to school for the first time, and how he handles being exposed to people who are now not treating him very well. I gave that one 8.5 stars. Next is Speaker for the Dead. This is by Orson Scott Card. This is the second book in the Enders. I think it's the Ender saga, and I think it's just a trilogy. So far, I'm enjoying it. This continues to follow Ender, even though it's 3,000 years later, but he travels at light speed a lot, so he gets to live longer, sort of. He doesn't get to live longer, but time goes by while he's traveling at light speed. This is First Contact with Aliens, the first book. People did not do so well with their first contact with aliens, and this is their second chance, so they're trying to do it right. I gave that one 8.5 stars. Next was Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman. This is the second book in the Arc of the Scythe series. This one I liked quite a bit. It was pretty dark. For a young adult novel, it was pretty dark. And the end was, wow. Bad things happen. And every time I think, there's some light at the end of the tunnel, something good's going to happen. And then no, they just make it worse. I gave this one 9 stars. Next one was Kings of Heaven. This is by Richard Nell. This is the last book in the Ash and Sand trilogy. This is a grimdark fantasy, and it was just amazing. And every time that I thought, oh man, like we've gotten to the last twist, you know, what more can happen? And then he throws in something else, and it was just a great conclusion to the trilogy. I really enjoyed it a lot. I gave it 9.5 stars. Next one was Pawn's Gambit by Rob Hayes, and this is a standalone in the Mortal Techniques series. There's a bunch. They're just like standalones in this series. This one follows the gods are having a competition to see who gets to be the head honcho, the big, and be in charge of like all the gods. They have to hire mortals to go on this kind of crazy scavenger hunt for them. And I think the characters in this are probably the best. The plots are kind of simple, but I think the characters more than make up for it. The only problem I have with them is they're kind of short. I wish they were longer. I found a really great quote from this one. Well, you will never be again who you are right now. Change is inevitable as time. So you might as well get comfortable with who you're going to become and stop mourning over who you were. And I thought that was awesome. I gave that one 10 stars. And my favorite book this month was 1984 by George Orwell. I seem to have a thing for classics this year. And even though like I hated to love it because there was so much in it that I was like, oh my heck, I swear this is happening right now. And, you know, with just kind of the different things that you notice, like how many, there's cameras everywhere and they're watching everything we do. So many times that you might see something on your news and you go like, is that really real? And think about how they're trying to manipulate the way that you think about certain situations. I thought it was amazing. And like I said, I hated to love it because I'm like, this is happening now. This is the world that we live in. It was written in 1949 and it's still applicable today. It's still creepy. It was awesome. So those are the books that I read this month. Those are what I felt about them. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. I put new videos out on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Thanks.